do you know Charlie Munger, who's
Of course.
Warren
He died
Buffett's-
recently, unfortunately.
Died-
He was one of the greats.
One of his rules that I absolutely love is this inversion rule. So basically,
always invert.
Always invert, yeah. And I was writing about this in my newsletter. So he does the famous commencement speech at the University of Southern California, and he basically says he's asked to do a talk to a kind of bug-eyed, wide-eyed American students, and he goes, "This is how to live a life of misery." And I think the 5 things he's like: inhale alcohol and chemicals, be resentful and envious, be unreliable. And don't stand on the shoulders and do not stand on the shoulders of others, i.e. learn from others' mistakes. Do those 5 things and you'll live a life of misery. So the whole point is his famous quote is wisdom is prevention. So if you avoid those things, you will live a good life. And I've been thinking about that. So I've added some for myself, is that I rush everywhere. So when I rush, I'm just like, I'm not enjoying my life, basically. So one of my things, if I rush everywhere. But I would love to apply this to brand building in food. So, like, what would you say, if we're using the rule of inversion, what other ways a brand could absolutely fuck itself? So, say we were to kind of how could Coca-Cola essentially dismantle themselves with the inversion rules? Like, what were the things they'd have to do?
This is similar to a game that was invented. This is similar to a game that was invented by a guy called Jeremy Bullmore, I think, who was a great creative guy at the agency J. Walter Thompson, and he called this Brandicide, which is
I love that.
In order to discover what a brand is, one useful mode of inquiry is what you might call to decide what the brand isn't. And all I can remember is, you've got to remember this was the 1980s, and you had After Eight mints as a sort of premium after-dinner mint sold by Rowntree's in the little individual envelopes, I love them, yeah. And the question was, what would you do if you wanted to kill the After Eight brand? And the first suggestion was you introduce After Eight chewing gum. Okay, you move the brand in. And then someone decided they thought that actually an upmarket mint-flavoured chewing gum might actually do quite well. And then someone else suggested After Eight bubblegum. Okay, and that's the kind of piece of Brandicide. It's so totally inappropriate to what the brand is about. And what's interesting about McDonald's actually is that it has innovated significantly, but it's always gone to the adjacent possible. So the mistake that McDonald's hasn't made is it's introduced screen ordering and it's introduced table service, but it hasn't removed face-to-face ordering, and it hasn't removed order at the counter. Now, what a lot of supermarkets have done is they've gone, God, it's cheaper to actually have self-service checkout, self-checkout, than it is to have people. So we're going to have really few tills, and we're going to have loads and loads of self-service checkout. Okay. Now, I think, this is an example of where I think companies get it really badly wrong, which is there are whole areas of company decision-making which are made by procurement or by the finance function with no input from marketing, which are made entirely on the basis of financial expediency with no consideration given for the customer experience. So an example of this is when you park at my local M&S. Now, M&S has got a lot of things right recently, and they're undoubtedly on a bit of a roll. The new chief executive, who comes from a very strong lifetime retailer, What
do you think they've got right? Like, because I know
quality of food, the clothing. They've finally started to crack clothing. I think they still make a few mistakes. I think the way in which they decorate and lay out the clothing stores is fundamentally inimical to selling premium goods. Okay? Yeah. There's certain rules in premium fashion, which is, if you're paying over the odds for something, you want carpets and you don't want industrial lighting above your head. And when you pay your 80 quid, you want a rope handle bag. And I think Marks and Spencer's could learn from that. There are certain just heuristic rules, that, you'll always notice this. The first rule of being an upmarket Turkish restaurant is you don't sell doner kebabs. Right? Mm-hmm. Which slightly annoys me because I really like the doner kebab. Yeah, I think it's a great thing. Yeah. But it's now, what happens at M&S in Sevenoaks is that no one with a marketing or customer focused mindset has any say in this decision. And someone says, who are we going to get to run the car park? Because we can't make the car park free, because if we do, people just park there all day and go shopping in Sevenoaks or work in Sevenoaks, and the car park will be full. So they obviously go to the person who offers the highest bid to manage the car park. Okay, if you let us collect the money, we'll pay you a certain amount of money to manage this car park. The person who offers the highest bid is almost certainly likely to be the person most ready to issue fines to people for overstaying. Or in this case, what happens is, now, bear in mind, I'm not criticising M&S here. I'm simply showing it as an exemplar of what even really good brands do, where they get it wrong by handing decisions out to people who are purely motivated by the financial side of the question and have no responsibility for the consumer experience. And that would be the people who put in lots and lots of self-checkout tills, okay, which has now led to an epidemic of shoplifting. Okay, yes. But those people can lay claim to the financial saving, but they're not around to be responsible for the adverse consequences. Apart from anything else, in Waitrose and Sevenoaks, quite a lot of people, it's a fairly minted area, do a whole weekly shop there. It's quite difficult to do a whole weekly shop in a self-checkout till.
Have you seen...
You need a trolley, you need a bloody... I do the self-scanning, but there are a lot of people who are over 60. They don't want to get an app and scanning your own groceries with a bloody mobile phone is a pain in the arse anyway, because you need 3 hands, okay? Now, in the M&S car park, you come in, you pay, you use the app to pay for an hour, and the app says you have an hour left. You drive out after precisely an hour, and then you get issued a fine through the post because number plate recognition. Why? Because the number plate recognition system judges your duration of parking from entry to exit, not from the moment you pay. Now, obviously, if you're a bit slow getting out of the car, you pay 2 or 3 minutes later than you actually enter the car park, right?
Yeah.
Now, in every single car park, whether it's pay and display, whether it's an app or whatever, which is normally policed by a human being, if you pay for an hour, you've got an hour from the moment you pay, right? They don't count the 4 minutes you were dicking around finding the ticket machine or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But in this system, because it's done by ANPR, they'll issue a fine if you arrive, pay 3 minutes later, and then leave 60 minutes later. Now, locally, on my local next door, that's driving people apoplectic. That, for a long time, I think this is now, they've finally got rid of it. No, it may still be the case. In that same store, you needed £1 to have a trolley. Now, nobody carries fucking coins anymore, right? I do not have £1 on my person at this moment. I might have one in the car, if I remember. Those are the kind of utterly ridiculous things that even great brands do. Utterly ridiculous, because what you've got to remember is that even if 95% of your customers 95% of the time are really happy, if you enrage someone 3 times in a row, you lose a customer almost for life.
And so that's another back.
And they're not looking at the long-term consequences of doing what they've done. They're simply looking at the short-term cost savings. And that's the real way to kill any brand, which is to focus so narrowly on short-term financial expediency that you forget the fact that you're in a relationship.
Espressos is sponsored by supply chain software gurus Unleashed. It talks to your e-com and accounting software. It's helped Islands cut admin time in half, get granular clarity on your margins, know where your stock is, don't miss availability. Brands like Candy Kittens, Tiny Rebel and Trip all use Unleashed, and so should you.